Let me start with something I noticed a long time ago before I understood what I was even looking at. There are people who walk into your life and the air changes, not because of how they look, not because of what they say, something underneath all of that, a recognition, as if some part of you that had been asleep for years suddenly opened its eyes and said, "There you are, I've been waiting." It's a strange thing to describe to someone who hasn't felt it. They'll nod politely and think, "You mean attraction?" But it isn't attraction. Attraction is loud and it fades. This is quiet and it doesn't. This is the feeling of meeting a stranger and somehow already knowing them, of sitting across from a person you met an hour ago and feeling like you're picking up a conversation you started in another life. My name is Walter. I've spent most of my life watching people, listening to them, sitting across from them at kitchen tables and in quiet rooms while they tried to explain things they had no words for. I'm not a young man anymore, and one of the few benefits of getting older is that you stop needing things to be simple. You start seeing the patterns underneath. And one of the patterns I kept running into over and over was this. The chosen ones, the ones set apart, the ones who carry a weight most people around them never seem to feel when two of them are meant to find each other. It doesn't happen like an ordinary meeting. It happens like a key sliding into a lock that was carved for it before either of them was born. The title speaks of the 144,000. You know the number. It comes from Revelation, the sealed ones, marked on the forehead, set apart from the rest, standing where most cannot follow. I'm not here to argue theology with you, or to tell you exactly who fits inside that number. I'll leave that between you and God. But I'll tell you what I've come to believe. There is a kind of person who lives their whole life feeling sealed in a way they can't explain. Different, burdened, aware. They feel things before they happen. They carry a sense that they were set apart for something, even in the seasons when nothing in their life looks set apart at all. And when two people like that are meant to walk together, certain things always happen. I've counted 7. Let me walk you through them, slowly, the way I would if you were sitting right here across from me with the coffee going cold because neither of us wants to stop talking. The first thing is that you meet after the fire, not before it. People imagine the chosen ones finding each other in some golden moment, both of them shining, both of them whole. That's not how it works. Almost every time I've seen it happen, the two of them met after one or both had already been through something that nearly broke them. A loss that took the floor out from under their life. A betrayal they didn't see coming. A season in the wilderness where they begged God for an answer and heard nothing back but silence for what felt like years. Think about Ruth. She doesn't meet Boaz in a palace. She doesn't meet him dressed in fine clothes at a feast. She meets him in a field, gleaning the leftover grain that the harvesters dropped a widow with nothing, a foreigner in a strange land, holding on to her mother-in-law because she had nowhere else on earth to hold on to. The fire had already passed through her life and left it bare. Her husband was dead. Her future, by every human measure anyone could name, was gone. And it was precisely there, in the aftermath, in the burned-over ground of her life, bent over in someone else's field, that the connection meant for her appeared. I find that detail almost unbearable when I sit with it, because everything in us wants to be found at our best, cleaned up, successful, and God keeps arranging these meetings in the rubble, in the field. After the loss, that's the pattern. You don't meet your kindred soul when everything is easy. You meet them when you've been refined, when the parts of you that couldn't have recognized them have already been burned away. The pride, the illusions, the version of yourself that was still performing for the world. So, if you've wondered why the right person didn't show up in your comfortable years, that's why. The fire had to do its work first. You weren't ready to see them, and neither were they. The second thing is that being near them quiets the noise you've carried your whole life. Chosen ones tend to be loud on the inside. I don't mean dramatic. I mean their minds rarely rest. They notice too much. They feel too much. They carry questions most people never even think to ask. They lie awake at 2 a.m. wrestling with things other people sleep right through, and because of that, most relationships exhaust them. Most people, however kind, however well-meaning, simply add to the noise. One more person to manage, one more performance to keep up. But when 2 of them are meant to be together, something strange happens. The noise drops. Not because the questions get answered, most of them never do, but because for the first time there's someone in the room who hears the same frequency, who doesn't flinch at the depth, who doesn't tell them to calm down or lighten up or stop overthinking everything. I remember a man I knew years ago. I'll call him Daniel, though that wasn't his name. He was the most restless soul I'd ever met. Brilliant, tormented, always 3 steps ahead of everyone in the room, and lonely because of it. People liked him, but nobody could keep up with him. And after a while, he stopped letting them try. He told me once, with no self-pity in his voice, just a flat kind of acceptance, that he'd given up on the idea of ever being understood. He'd decided some people are simply meant to think their deepest thoughts alone. Then he met someone, and the thing he said to me afterward, I've never forgotten. He said, "Walter, when I'm with her, the engine finally turns off. I can just be." That was it. That was all he said. And it told me everything. Because that's the sign. Not fireworks, not obsession, the engine turning off. The kind of rest the scriptures are pointing at when they say, "He leads me beside still waters." Notice it doesn't say, "He leads you to excitement." It says, "still waters." The stillness is the sign. The chaos that has finally, after all these years, found somewhere to lie down. The third thing is that you stop performing the version of yourself you built to survive. Most chosen ones learn early that the world doesn't quite know what to do with them, so they build a self that's easier for other people to handle. They dim themselves down. They learn which parts of their convictions to hide at the dinner table, which dreams to keep quiet about, which questions to swallow so people don't look at them sideways. They get good at it. So good that they forget they're even doing it. The mask stops feeling like a mask and starts feeling like a face, but when the right person arrives, the costume becomes unbearable. Not because they demand the truth from you. The right ones rarely demand anything. But because around them, the lie just feels pointless, exhausting, like wearing a heavy coat indoors. You find yourself saying things out loud you'd never said to another living soul. You catch yourself being the unedited version, the one you'd almost forgotten was still in there under all the careful editing. There's a moment in the life of David that has always struck me. When he brings the ark back to Jerusalem, he dances before the Lord with everything he has undignified, stripped of his royal restraint, leaping in front of the whole city like a man who has forgotten anyone is watching. And his wife Michal watches from a window and despises him for it. She wanted the controlled king, the composed one. The one who behaved like royalty is supposed to behave. But David had found a place where he no longer had to perform before God, fully himself, holding nothing back. The right connection does that for a chosen one. It gives you a place where the dance is allowed, where you don't have to keep managing how much of yourself leaks out. And if you've spent your whole life being told in 100 small ways that you are too much, too intense, too deep, too sensitive, too serious, then you will know the relief of that the very moment you feel it. It's like setting down something heavy you'd been carrying so long, you forgot your arms were tired. The fourth thing is that the two of you keep arriving at the same convictions from different roads. This one took me years to understand. With the chosen ones, the connection isn't only emotional, it's directional. They tend to be people of purpose. They sense they were put here for something, even when they can't name what it is. And when two of them are meant to walk together, you'll notice they keep landing in the same place without ever comparing notes. One of them feels a pull toward a decision, and before they even say a word, the other one has already been feeling the exact same pull. They read the same passage on the same morning without knowing it. They sense the same season turning. One of them brings up a thought they've been afraid to say out loud, and the other one says, "I've been thinking that for weeks." It isn't coincidence, and it isn't some kind of telepathy. It's two people quietly tuned to the same source, hearing the same instruction from the same voice. Think of how Aaron is sent to meet Moses in the wilderness. God speaks to Moses at the burning bush, gives him the calling he's been running from his whole life. And at that very same time, far away, with no message sent between them, no way for either man to know what the other was doing, God moves Aaron to go out into the desert to find his brother. Two men, walking toward each other across the wilderness, both moved by the same voice neither one of them could see. And they meet at the mountain of God, right where they were both being led. That's the fourth sign. When you're meant to walk with another chosen one, you'll find that God has been speaking the same word to both of you, separately, in the dark, long before you ever spoke a single word to each other. The fifth thing is that the silence between you is full instead of empty. I touched on the noise quieting, but this is something different. This is what happens after the quiet has settled in. There's a kind of silence that two ordinary people share that feels like absence, a gap, an awkwardness, a thing that has to be filled before it gets uncomfortable. You've felt it. You reach for your phone. You make a comment about the weather just to make the silence stop. And then there's the silence between two people who truly belong together, which feels like the opposite, like presence, like a room that's completely full even though no one is saying anything at all. The chosen ones often can't stand small talk. It costs them energy they don't have to spare. The endless surface chatter, the performing, the filling of air, it drains them. So when they find someone they can simply be quiet with drive for an hour without a word and feel closer at the end of it, sit on a porch as the light goes down, pray in the same room without performing the prayer for each other, that is not a small thing. That is rare. That's the body recognizing something the mind hasn't even caught up to yet. Scripture has this beautiful moment with Elijah. He's at the end of himself, run out into the wilderness, wanting to die, and he goes looking for God. And God isn't in the great wind that tears the mountains. He isn't in the earthquake. He isn't in the fire. All the loud things, all the dramatic things, God passes them by. And then comes a sound of low stillness, a gentle whisper. That's where God was the whole time. The chosen ones learn, sooner or later, that the deepest things don't shout, they whisper. And when you find a person whose silence feels like that low stillness, whose quiet feels like company instead of distance, like being held, instead of being left alone, you have found something that most people will go their entire lives without ever knowing was possible. The sixth thing is that you become more dangerous to the darkness together than you ever were apart. Now, I want to be careful here, because this is the part people get wrong. They assume a soul connection is supposed to make life soft, easier, less resistance, fewer storms. With ordinary love, maybe that's true. But when two chosen ones come together, the opposite often happens first. Life pushes back. Things stir that had been sleeping. Old patterns wake up and try to pull the two of you apart. Misunderstandings come out of nowhere. The connection seems to attract opposition the way high ground attracts lightning. And here's what took me a long time to learn. That's not a sign you got it wrong. That's a sign you got it right. Two lamps in one room don't make less light. They make more. And more light means whatever was hiding in the corners has nowhere left to go. Scripture puts it in a way that always stops me. One will put 1,000 to flight, but two will put 10,000. Look closely at the math. It isn't double. 2 doesn't get you 2,000. 2 gets you 10,000. Something multiplies when two of the set-apart ones stand back to back. Their strength isn't added together. It's compounded. It becomes something neither of them could have been alone. I've watched this in the lives of couples who were clearly, unmistakably meant for each other. And the early days weren't peaceful at all. They were a war. Everything tested them. Money, family, timing, their own fears, things that should have been easy turning impossibly hard. And the ones who held on, who didn't let the resistance convince them they'd made a mistake, came through that testing forged into something that simply could not be shaken afterward. So, if you've found someone and the whole world seems to be fighting it, don't panic and don't read it as a verdict. Ask yourself instead what it is the darkness is so afraid of. Very often the size of the resistance is telling you the size of what the two of you were meant to do together. The seventh thing, and this is the one that matters more than all the others put together, is that being with them pulls you toward God, not away from Him. I've saved this for last, because it's the test that sorts everything else out. You can have all of it: the timing, the peace, the recognition, the full silence, every sign I've named. And you can still be deceived if the connection slowly, quietly becomes the thing you worship. The enemy of a chosen one rarely attacks with something ugly. He's too clever for that. He attacks with something beautiful. Something so close to the real thing that you'd never suspect it. A counterfeit so well made that you don't notice the substitution until one day you realize you've stopped praying, stopped seeking, stopped listening, because now you have them. And somewhere along the way, they quietly became enough. They took the throne, and you handed it over without even feeling the weight of what you'd done. A true connection between two set-apart souls does the exact opposite. It makes both of you hungrier for God, not less. You pray more, not less. You're more honest before Him, more drawn to what's eternal, more aware, not less, of the calling on your life. The person doesn't compete with your devotion. They fuel it. They keep pointing past themselves, back toward the one who made the two of you and arranged for your roads to cross. This is what I came to understand, watching the ones who got it right and the ones who got it wrong over all these years. The wrong connection makes you smaller and quieter before God. It slowly closes the distance between you and Him without you noticing. The right one sends you back to Him stronger every time. Paul wrote that we're surrounded by a great cloud of witnesses, and that we should run with endurance the race that's set before us, fixing our eyes ahead. The right person doesn't sit you down in the stands and tell you you've done enough. They run beside you. They keep their own eyes on the finish line, and by doing it, they remind you to keep yours there too. So those are the 7. You meet after the fire. The noise inside you finally quiets. You stop performing the self you built to survive. You keep arriving at the same convictions from different roads. The silence between you is full instead of empty. You grow more dangerous to the darkness together than you ever were apart. And above everything else, past every other sign, they pull you toward God instead of away from Him. Let me leave you with one more thing before we finish. I spent a long stretch of my own life believing this kind of connection was a story other people got to live, but not me. I had my reasons. Disappointments stack up over the years, and after enough of them, you build a quiet wall around yourself, and you call it wisdom. You tell yourself you've simply grown realistic. What I learned, and I learned it late, is that the chosen ones don't find each other by searching harder, or by lowering their standards out of loneliness, or by forcing a door that was never theirs. They find each other by becoming who they were sealed to be, by doing the inner work, by healing, by staying faithful in the wilderness when there's no one beside them yet, and then by trusting that the one who marked them already knows exactly where the other one is and knows exactly when the two roads are meant to cross, not one day too early, not one day too late, at the appointed time, His time. Now I want to hear from you, and not a generic answer. I want the real one. Of these 7 signs, which is the one you've already lived? The one that made you stop the video and sit back, because it named something you felt years ago and never had the words for until just now. Write it down in the comments below. Tell me which sign you recognized, and if you're willing, tell me the story behind it. What happened? Who it was? How you knew? I read them. I read them all. And somewhere down in those comments, there is a very good chance that another chosen one, sitting alone tonight and wondering if any of this is real, is going to read your words and finally understand something true about their own life. So don't keep it to yourself. Leave it where someone who needs it can find it.